took place in a single month, 9,000 new auto jobs. You haven't heard that in a long time. After auto workers lost more than 27,000 auto jobs in the final year of Biden. These are also high-paying jobs. These are very prime jobs. The ISM Manufacturing Survey and the S&P Manufacturing Survey have also confirmed that our administration is presiding over a brand new domestic manufacturing boom after major collapse under Biden. It was a collapse. All he did is keep adding new government jobs, which are not the jobs you want. We're trying to shrink government and grow the private sector. That's what we've been doing. Under the final 2 years of Biden, 1 in every 4 jobs created in America was a government job. That's a tremendous percentage. But under the first full month of President Trump, which we haven't even gotten started yet, an incredible 93% of all job gains were in the private sector. So that statistic just came out. Big gains for native-born Americans for the first time in 15 months. The job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months. And they are, they put it into effect pretty quickly. They have confidence that what I'm saying is going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask a highly respected gentleman, Kevin Hassett. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been right about a lot. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and Kevin was a big part of it. So, Kevin, could you maybe give it a little description, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. I think that the 3 things that you emphasized during the campaign is that you wanted to create domestic, high-paying manufacturing jobs, that you wanted to end wasteful government spending and reduce the unproductive government workers, and in fact, unleash them into the private economy where they could be more productive, and to create jobs for Americans. A lot of people said that if you deported illegals, the employment would go down because no Americans would take those jobs. And if you look, 280,000 American-born folks were hired. Manufacturing jobs are going up. And this is just out of the expectation of your future policies, really, sir. It's in April when your Reciprocal Trade Act is expected to happen. The tax cuts haven't passed yet. And so people are clearly expecting the golden age. And if you want to forecast the future numbers, everybody, just keep in mind that President Trump has already gotten us $1.7 trillion in commitments of new factories. And those haven't even happened yet. Those aren't even in the numbers. And so I expect this is going to be a glimpse of a golden age to come, sir.
Thank you very much. One other thing, in Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of. But under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada. But our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold. But we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%. Nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers. So that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. It never has been fair. And they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody. That stops now. I had it stopped in my first term. And we're going to really stop it now, because this has been very unfair. Our country, from an economic standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a trade standpoint, has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico, and then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. We do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now, because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU was formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong. And, if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine. But they can't do like they used to do, because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA. So we're not going to have that, and we're going to see them build it back. Now, we've already had 5 major automobile companies. First time you've heard this in a long time, since my first term, actually, where we were really rocking and rolling, and then Biden came in and he stopped everything, like such a stupid thing to do, not even a believable thing. But we have many auto plants now coming in. We have big chip plants. We have the biggest chip company in the world, most powerful, probably one of the most powerful companies in the world. Wouldn't you say, Kevin? And he's coming in, and they're building one of the largest chip plants in the world. That'll be done in Arizona, mostly in Arizona. And that'll give us a big percentage. One plant will give us a big percentage of the chip market, something we have very little of. We used to have Intel, and Intel was run by a man named Andy Grove. And Andy Grove was a tough, smart guy. I used to read about him when I was a young man, and he did an incredible job. He really dominated the chip business. And then he died, and I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat, because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily. But so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips. The brake of a car, the cars have chips all over the place. I was reading an article the other day where they talk about the brakes of a car are loaded up with chips. Who would think that a brake has a chip in it? But it's all about chips. So that was a big thing. And they'll be investing hundreds of billions of dollars in this country, and we'll be taking back a big, big portion of that industry. We have others coming in too. But a lot of car manufacturers are coming in, and they're coming in fast. And one of the reasons you see these numbers, and again, Kevin said it, and I said it a little bit, but the fact that they know I won the election, so after I was president-elect, they assumed that I was going to do what I said, because they do what I say. And so these numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th. Right? So, Kevin, thank you very much. Great job. Any questions?
Mr. President, how concerned are you that the large-scale federal government layoffs will weaken the labor market? How concerned are you about
the large-scale fentanyl what?
The federal government layoffs will impact the labor market, will weaken the labor market.
Oh. No, I think the labor market's going to be fantastic, but it's going to have high-paying manufacturing jobs as opposed to government jobs. We had too many people in government. You can't just do that. We had many too many. This is for 40 years. You know, this isn't just now. This built up and got worse and worse, and they just hire more and more people. You look at Department of Education, it seems like so many buildings I ride by, it says Department of Education. They're all over the place. And we don't even want it. We want the education to be given by the states. It'll be much better. It'll move us to the top of the list from the bottom of the list. And actually save us money. But it's too important to even talk about them. It'll save us a lot of money. But we don't want that. We want education to be given. So you go to Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and all these places that are so well run. They're going to be producing education that will be the equivalent of, like Denmark is one, and Norway, Sweden. Actually, China is one of the better in terms of education. And so we can't blame size anymore. You know, China has 1.4 billion people. But they're very high on the list. The one thing we're doing well on, we're number one on the list, is cost per pupil. We spend more money than any other country in the world by far. So I jokingly say the one thing we do well on is the cost. We spend more money, and yet we're toward the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you, the joint address, millions of Americans watched your joint address earlier this week where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks. And these are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies, and I gave them a little bit of a 1-month reprieve because it was unfair, although I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and they're taking advantage of it a little bit. But they called me, they asked me, they said, could they have a little bit of help? And I decided, they're American companies, USMCA, and I let them have that. But this really kicks in, the reciprocal, as you know, kicks in on, let's see, I guess the 2nd. And I wanted it to be the 1st so badly. It just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day. So I made it the 2nd. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, the globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other parts of the world. But the other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's hard to believe. 90,000. Think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments, and you can't just. I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, "No, I'm not going to give you anything," and then you wouldn't have had to say, "Well, they're getting a little extra." It's just a little bit of a 1-month reprieve. They're very happy about what's happening. They won't have to go across borders, and you see the zigzagging. You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it. But I think very little. On occasion, if we can do something, we want to help companies. We want to help companies create jobs. So I could have left that, and you wouldn't have had a minor change. Instead, I was asked by the real majors, the big majors, if they could do this, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. I want you to produce a lot of jobs. And numerous of the people, actually all of the people I spoke to have already they're very much on the way to already do it. That's why you have auto jobs increase. And the man, I don't know him, Sean Fain, I don't know him, and I did great, as you know, with the auto workers, with the Teamsters, with unions. I did fantastically well. Best numbers ever by a Republican. And I have a lot of respect for those people. But Sean Fain, who I don't know, but wasn't a supporter, although the auto workers were big supporters. I watched him last night, and he said Donald Trump is absolutely right on tariffs. He said what he's doing on tariffs is an incredible thing, and it's about time somebody had the guts to do it, because we're going to save auto manufacturing. And I said to people when I was campaigning, you're going to have so many auto jobs, you're not going to believe what's going to happen. We're going to load up Michigan. I won the state of Michigan, as you know. And part of the reason I won it was I got a lot of auto workers that voted for me, Detroit, etc. But I think people are going to be very surprised, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned in your remarks chips manufacturing, how a significant percentage is now in Taiwan. You also mentioned it in your address to Congress, and you called on Congress to overturn the CHIPS Act, which had bipartisan support in the last Congress. Why would you like to see this particular law overturned, Mr. President?
Because it's hundreds of billions of dollars and it's just a waste of money. Now, some people have already taken the money and used it. Actually, it's very hard to qualify because they go by race, they go by gender, they go by all sorts of things. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You won't be able to find those people. So I don't even think anybody can qualify. They have so many different categories. In order to qualify, you have to have so many of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain this, a certain... And I don't think they can qualify, but if they take the money, they better qualify because they'll be watching them. But it's a tremendous waste of money. I didn't give the greatest chip company in the world, one of the greatest companies, I didn't give them 10 cents. They came here because of tariffs, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And they also came here because they like the results of the election, because they know that I'm very pro-business and pro-jobs. I mean, I'm pro-business, not for business sake. I'm pro-business because of jobs, because business is producing the jobs. Okay?
Are you President on Russia, if I may? President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine. And Ukraine, I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine.
Than with Russia?
And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, and they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. Can't do that.
Mr. President,
We're trying to help them. And Ukraine has to get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there. Good. I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself, and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get the ceasefire in place, and drive peace home.
Mr. President, you put out on that.
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance. But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop. They're losing on average 2,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers. Do you agree, Peter?
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides. I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has
They both
said,
are.
this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump.
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president. But it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened, too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals, including murderers, thousands of murderers. Many killed, far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But Tom Holman and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here. And we'll get them out. We'll get them all out. But all these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing a good job.
Mr. President, in regards to the pause on military assistance to Ukraine, you put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of the Patriot missile batteries?
Good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there. Because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death. More important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So we're in for $350 billion, and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled. This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
So on Iran, how confident are you that the Iranians will negotiate with you? And is Israel on board with this outreach?
Yeah, I saw the hostages the other day. They came in, people that were not young, some young and some older, much older. And they gave, it was hard for them to do it actually. They gave statements as to what happened. I was asking, what happened? How was it? I said, did you see anybody in there that was kind to, like, out of the hundreds of people that you were seeing, Hamas? Did some of them wink at you and say, don't worry, you're going to be okay, or give you a piece of bread, or no? I said, were there any people that were, like, kind? I was shocked. The answer was nobody. There was nobody. Just the opposite. They'd be slapped and punched. One man broke his ribs. He couldn't breathe for a month. It was brutal. I was so surprised. Could you think there'd be a couple of people that would be kind, that would say, you're going to be okay? But they had none of that. It's pretty amazing. Brian?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President.
He's a kind person.
Well, according to the internet.
Although not to Zelensky, he wasn't.
Well, you know what? That's another
But to Trump,
conversation.
he's been good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nice tie, by the way.
Thank you.
We,
Thank you. I
coordinated.
like yours too.
Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah. It's a very good question. Sometimes questions aren't answerable. They're in a very unusual position. They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started. You could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian. And it didn't start. For 4 years, you know, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir about it. I used to speak to him about it at length. It was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going in. And he knew it, there were going to be consequences. But it did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation, you have the war with Ukraine and Russia, that wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran had no money. Iran was stone cold broke, and now they have a lot of money. But that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. We're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, I saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion. All in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right? So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world. But we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon. Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
Mr. President, your allies are calling on you to pardon Derek Chauvin. Are you considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No.
Mr. President, on peace.
I haven't heard that.
In the first term, you may recall, I broke the news that you were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason for that was the work that you led on the Abraham Accords. I spoke yesterday with the member of parliament, the Norwegian parliament, that nominated you. And he said what the Nobel Committee is looking for from you, Mr. President, is security guarantees for Ukraine. Is that a possibility, Mr. President?
So, before I even think about that, I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that, the prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them. We're losing 2,000 human beings every week. More than that, actually. 2,000 nice, young, although they're getting older because they're drafting much older now. In the case of one country, much older, because a lot of the young people have been killed. It's very sad, and I'd like to see if I could stop that. And I'd like to also see if we could stop making these massive payments from the United States. I mean, Biden gave away money like it was water. With no anything, got nothing for it. Europe did it in the form of a loan. They get their money back, we don't. So that's how we came up with the rare earth deal. But we started, behind the eight ball. He could have gone to Europe. He could have said, "Come on, you got to put up money with us. You got to put up money with us." But he never did that. They just kept handing money out because he was grossly incompetent. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Head out.
Welcome back, everyone. So you've been watching President Trump. He, of course, was speaking there in the Oval Office, answering questions before reporters, fielding a number of different questions from everything from Ukraine to the situation with tariffs and all of those kinds of things. A lot going on there in the White House. The president ending this week with that news conference before reporters there. Our Brian Glenn, you saw him walking out of the Oval Office there just moments ago as well, getting ready to go on the air here on Real America's Voice and give us a quick wrap-up of what's happening. Still a very busy day for President Trump, as happening today, the president is going to be meeting with cryptocurrency officials there at the White House. He'll be meeting with the executives. Today's summit comes just one day after 47's latest executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That reserve is going to consist of Bitcoin that's owned by the federal government. White House crypto czar, or the White House crypto czar, says the Bitcoin will come from forfeitures assumed as part of criminal and civil cases. While it's still somewhat unclear how this federally held Bitcoin is going to benefit you, the taxpayer, the crypto czar, David Sachs, says, and I'm quoting here, the U.S. will not sell any Bitcoin that's deposited in the reserve. It will be kept as a store of value. The reserve is like a digital Fort Knox for the cryptocurrency, often called digital gold. Under this latest EO, the Treasury and Commerce secretaries are being directed to develop what the president calls budget-neutral strategies to acquire additional Bitcoin that have no, quote, incremental cost to taxpayers. And while Bitcoin represents imaginary currency that's held in the cyber world, the Trump administration is preparing to pay out real money that's held in the here and now. The administration has a 6 p.m. deadline on Monday to pay foreign aid contractors and grant recipients. It's all part of a judge's ruling on Thursday on the heels of the Supreme Court's decision forcing foreign aid payments despite the Department of Government Efficiency's findings of waste when it comes to those payments. The total amount of the upcoming payments is reportedly nearly $2 million. And President Trump doing an about-face on tariffs against Mexico and Canada, at least temporarily, just 2 days after slapping the two countries with 25% taxes on imports. The commander-in-chief is now pushing pause on those tariffs. He's specifically pulling back on goods that are covered by the North American Trade Agreement. The change of heart will affect 50% of Mexican imports and 39% of Canadian goods. Mr. Trump's tariff reprieve will last until April 2nd. He mentioned that in his news conference just a little while ago, saying that he ideally wanted to start on the 1st, but since that was April Fool's Day, he decided to push off one more day. The president saying that even that one-day delay will cost the United States pretty big. The same day as those tariffs go into effect, the reciprocal ones, the commander-in-chief is expected to impose reciprocal tariffs on all of America's trade partners. Thursday's easing of tariffs came after President Trump had a conversation with Mexico's president, taking to Truth Social 47 writing that we are working hard together on the border, both in terms of stopping illegal aliens from entering the United States and likewise stopping fentanyl. Those two issues, by the way, are the reasons Mr. Trump has given for the imposition of tariffs. And while Elon Musk is focusing his efforts on Doge in Washington, D.C., his SpaceX business is exploding, literally. Pieces of the company's Starship rocket are still being pulled out of the water between Florida and the Bahamas. The rocket exploded shortly after takeoff on Thursday during its 8th mission. It was supposed to be for satellite deployment demonstrations. Thursday's disintegration, however, marks the second consecutive Starship failure this year. It's the latest setback for SpaceX's whirlwind Starship development program, as Musk has set a goal of developing a rocket capable of sending bigger batches of satellites into space by this year. Well, a lot of people still talking about the censure of House Democrat Al Green for his outburst during President Trump's address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday. Let's play the side, guys, please.
Will Representative Green present himself to the well? By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Green be censured, that Representative Al Green forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Representative Al Green be censured.
Well, similar to his defiance during Thursday's censure, the Texas congressman was also defiant leading up to his removal from President Trump's address on Tuesday. That censure resolution, by the way, passed 224 to 198.
silenced. You're listening to The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, Job Creators Network. Listen carefully, everybody. There's a lot of excitement in Washington, D.C. as we start the new year, but I want to talk about something happening very exciting outside the D.C. Beltway, a revolution in the states. It's the education freedom movement. It's real, it's growing, and because some states, as they should, are putting parents in charge of the education of their kids. Everyone knows that education has the power to profoundly change a kid's life. And anyone who has raised a child knows each has different needs, learning styles, and God-given talents. The fact is, parents know their own kids best, know what's best for their development and their future. Education freedom legislation puts parents, not zip codes, and politicians in charge of these important family decisions. It's why I strongly support making universal education freedom a reality for every parent in every single state. To find out where your state legislature stands, to make sure your voice is heard, go to educationfreedomusa.com now. That is educationfreedomusa.com, educationfreedomusa.com now. Joining us now is a old friend, a great friend, an amazing patriot, and a congratulations is in order to the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. So good to see you, Brooke, and it's amazing to see you in the cabinet for President Trump. Congratulations.
Oh, Charlie Kirk, I mean, really, what a joy on so many levels. I know we have gotten to talk quite a bit off of the camera and off of your show, but this is the first time I've been back on the show, and I'm just so grateful to do it. But thank you so much. It's the honor of a lifetime.
So there's a lot of attention right now on the Department of Agriculture and kind of the mess that Joe Biden left you. The thing that is a talking point of the Democrats, and to be fair, a reality a lot of Americans are experiencing, is the price of eggs. Separate fact from fiction. Why is it that egg prices have gone up so dramatically, and what is the plan to bring those prices down?
Well, it's funny, all of the talk in Washington and certainly the amazing State of the Union, which was unbelievable. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time on your show talking about it. Oh, yeah. And it's what's happening with Ukraine, what's happening with America across the world, what's happening at the border. I mean, what's really happening across all of government with Elon and Doge has just been astounding. It's another revolution. But at the end of the day, if the single mom who lives in Detroit, Michigan, can't go to the grocery store and afford a carton of eggs, then the world's not right? I mean, it's that sort of pocketbook issue, and that as Charlie, you and I have long battled together to take the American dream to every corner of our country. These are really, real significant issues. I don't have my chart here with me, but if I did, and by the way, President Trump loves this chart, but it shows that for 40 years, the price of eggs was pretty static. It was right around $1.50, $2 a dozen. Then under Obama, it went up, not surprisingly because of overregulation and higher taxes, et cetera. The cost of input went up, but not significantly, maybe from $1.50, $2 to $2.50, $3. Then under Trump, without anything intentional, but just because less government, lower regulations, everyone did better, the prices went back down. But then under Biden, they skyrocketed 230% higher than what they were under Trump 1. And there's reasons for that, overregulation, et cetera. But the avian bird flu, which is a virus that these chickens have gotten, is a huge reason. The Biden team basically depopulated about 150 million egg-laying hens last year, which is the protocol. We're looking at the protocol now to see how to tweak it so that hopefully we don't have to do that moving forward. But we did. We rolled out a 5-point plan about a week ago, includes deregulation, includes repopulation much more quickly, includes importing eggs from other countries for the short term, and then for the long term, figuring out how to solve for these viruses that are basically annihilating significant populations in our poultry industry.
And so I don't want to oversimplify it, but a bunch of chickens were killed, like 100 million, and therefore it restricts the supply and the demand stays the same. And so the price goes up. That's right. Somewhat of a fair summation?
That's exactly right. Now, alongside the Biden crazy inflation, crazy overregulation, crazy spending, right? I mean, the bird flu has certainly been a massive driver in that, but it isn't just that. And, as much as we would love to get the price of eggs down to $2 by tomorrow, although I think we're making some good strides, I've seen some recent numbers, this is going to take a little while. It's going to take a little while to figure out how to solve for the flu. It's going to take a little while to get the deregulation, such as Prop 12 in California and line speeds and other things things back to normal before they were in Trump 1, and frankly, just bring the cost of goods down across the country. But we're making incredible strides. I'm so proud of this president. He has just been such a, I mean, we all know this, right? Such a warrior for everything that we care about. And my role now becomes, you know, the farmers, the ranchers, the ag community, bringing prosperity back to rural America and getting the price of those eggs down. That's at least what he's told me.
So speaking more broadly, educate our audience about the duties and the responsibilities, all about what the Department of Agriculture does. People just think of it as, you know, kind of corn or soybeans. It's a lot more than that. Kind of give us a little insight into your portfolio.
Well, it is. And when I got the call on November 23rd from President Trump, it was a Saturday before Thanksgiving. My husband and my 4 kids and I were driving to Auburn, Alabama for the Texas A&M Auburn football game, and very unexpectedly had the conversation that, I mean, really kind of changed everything. Although I will eventually go back and join you, Charlie, out in the trenches doing the great work outside. I mean, that's where my heart is. But it really is. It's a privilege. It's a blessing, but it's a big job. I mean, people assume, to your point, it's corn and soybeans and some beef, but it's also the food stamp program, which is a massive bureaucratic nightmare of a beast where we're not even really getting the food to the people who really need it most. And when we are, it includes Cokes and candy and all kinds of bad stuff. So there's massive amount of work that we need to do there. It also includes the Forest Service. So we've got the largest firefighting unit anywhere in the country of any size of government is the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service. We've got almost 30,000 firefighters in our community. So yesterday I was in North Carolina. They've got some fires that have popped up that are a little bit scary, looking at the damage of Hurricane Helene, but also understanding what we need to do and the resources that are necessary to ensure we don't have another fire like what happened in California, that all the different components are working well together. You name it. I think USDA, you know, it was the first agency, the first cabinet position created after the founding of the country. So, right, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson created defense and state and attorney general, et cetera. They waited, almost 100 years, and then Abraham Lincoln created the Department of Agriculture. And I think, and then it was a little while longer before the other ones came along. And so I think it became a little bit of the dumping ground for all the things that didn't have a place in a federal agency. But that's part of the great role, and I welcome it and I thrive with it. How do we realign the United States Department of Agriculture? How do we set a model for not just the federal government, but around the country on how you realign, how you reduce in force, how you become more effective and more efficient with much less money? And that's what we in our very small team right now, we're still trying to get people in the door, but that's what we're doing every day.
So let's also talk about tariffs. And I know there's a lot of back and forth on this. And by the way, the American people voted for tariffs, and they want tariffs.
Yes, they did.
My phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. I'm sure yours was, from farmers and ranchers and people that are great folks. You know, hey, what's going on? Are we able to sell our product? Are we able to import our product? How are you guys thinking about this at the Department of Agriculture?
Well, there's no doubt, you know, I've been now to 6 or 7 different states. I've only been in for about 2.5 weeks, I guess 3 weeks, and been to, a bunch of states, talked to a bunch of farmers, almost 200, I think, from around the country. Had a lot of them come to Washington. It's really important to me that I get outside the noise of Washington and outside the kind of the associations, et cetera. Not that they don't play a very good role, but I want to talk to the farmers directly. And in so doing, the number one issue for them is the uncertainty that tariffs and the potential trade renegotiations, what that means for our ag community. And listen, Charlie, in 100 years, I'm not sure that the ag community, that our farmers and ranchers have been operating at more of a razor-thin margin than they are today. I mean, it is not a good place to be. Our exports, we have a trade deficit of $49 billion in ag, thanks to Joe Biden. It was zero when we left President Trump's first term. That is real money taken out of the pockets of our farmers. But the number one thing they're concerned about is trade. And so yesterday, the president, whom I have been talking to, and these are his people, right? We are his people. And He knows that the rural communities and the ag communities have been with him since the moment he came down that escalator. It took other people a lot longer to get on board. In early 21, when others were running for the hills and not supporting President Trump, this community was, and he knows that. So he mentioned in the State of the Union a few times on Tuesday night, farmers, I'm with you. I love you. Yesterday, I talked to him multiples of times as they were finalizing at least the 30-day deal to exempt ag products under USMCA going to Canada or Mexico, which is a huge relief, even if short term. They exempted fertilizer, also called potash, from Canada under a different kind of line. But at the end of the day, the president is hyper-focused on delivering for the American people. He was elected on tariffs being part of that toolkit in order to bring prosperity back to America. But I am so confident that he is also and every day thinking about the real world effects on the backbone of this country and in rural America, which are our farmers.
So critically important. Secretary Rollins, it's nice to say that. Anything else that you, on your kind of front vision, things you're dealing with, you want our audience to be aware of? And what are your asks out of Congress with this big budget bill? What are some needs that you see, waste to cut, elimination, doge up the food stamps, where you're going to be going to Congress and say, hey, here are my big asks?
So at the end of the day, I think what's really important, and I'm assuming most of the people watching you today, Charlie, and are fans of yours, probably also watched the president on Tuesday night. This isn't easy, right? Revolution is never easy. And there are really hard decisions to be made. And there are days that, my goodness, how the concept of how you get this massive beast of the federal government that has gotten too big under both Democrats and Republicans, right? Democrats and Republicans. How do you take it back to where it is meant to be? How do you return the power to the people? How do you implement our founders' vision of self-governance when things have just gotten so out of control in Washington? And while, Charlie, you and I are both very much pathological optimists, I don't even know that you or I could have imagined the world that we're in right now in the best way, right? We've got Elon Musk, who is just doing such a phenomenal job. We have a cabinet. We're like family, and we're all working together. We've all now known each other and worked together for years at this point. So it isn't like we're in our silos anymore. This is a team effort to save America. So as I'm going to the Hill, and part of my message has been, Charlie, when you're in a revolution and you are significantly reducing the size of government, nothing will be perfect. It will be imperfect. There will be mistakes made, but this sort of shaking up the whole system and almost restarting it in a way, there's not going to be another opportunity, I believe, perhaps in our lifetimes, to do exactly what we're doing now. So even as I'm talking to our friends on the Hill, but even this morning I talked to a Democrat senator, a friend, I won't say who it was, but we had a very collegial conversation about what our goals are, what we're trying to do at USDA, the importance of returning, and realigning the agency. And for the most part, even those on the other side of the aisle understand that President Trump won with a mandate, and winning the popular vote and winning all of the swing states. And that's now what we're working to effectuate. So I have gotten nothing but mostly general positive feedback, even from those on the other side who understand what it is we're trying to do. And for the most part, doing it with the best, well, for our sake, we are doing it with the best of intentions. But even those on the other side, I think for the most part, recognize that while they are not in power, they may not make these decisions, but they realize this is what the American people have asked for.
Brooke, you're the greatest. Secretary Rollins, I should say, with all due respect.
No, Brooke forever. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. We'll be right back, everybody.
Waking up the woke.
You should get over that quickly.
One brainwashed radical at a time.
That's enough.
It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, I want to tell you guys about Y-Refi. Y-Refi is amazing. If you are a private student loan debt borrower, listen carefully. Great patriots here. Private student loan debt in the U.S. totals about $300 billion. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed. Y-Refi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others will not touch. Y-Refi does not care at all about what your credit score is. If your private student loan debt is keeping you up at night and ruining your life, you guys should check out yrefi.com. That is YREFY.com, yrefi.com. So check it out right now, yrefi.com. Do you have a co-borrower? YRefi can get them released from the loan. You can give your mom or dad a break. You can even skip a payment up to 6 months, every 6 months, up to 12 times. It may not be available in all states. Go to yrefi.com. That is YREFY.com. That is YRefi.com. So check it out right now, YRefi.com. You don't have to ignore the mountain of student loan statements on your kitchen table anymore. Go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Email me directly, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. We'll be right back. Breaking news, everybody. Trump has canceled $400 million to Columbia University over rising anti-Semitism on campus. That is just the start. For all these campuses that don't treat us well at Turning Point USA, and you guys restrict freedom of speech, your funding might be cut soon. I learned so much about University of Pennsylvania. Can you guys go back? I said the number on air because I remembered it because I had the dinner the day before. The amount of money these universities receive in overhead with grants is hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it's like $130 million a year that University of Pennsylvania receives. Well, one college where you don't have to worry about this, the breaking news, and Andrew, let's please tweet out the Columbia University news, is Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College is America's greatest college. History, economics, the great works of literature. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for an enjoyable refresher. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses, including their newest course on totalitarian novels. In this 8-lecture free course, you'll learn from Hillsdale College President Larry Yarn as he goes in depth on 4 novels, 1984, Brave New World, Darkness at Noon, and That Hideous Strength. More importantly, they can show us that faith, family, and friends are worth fighting for. Maybe you can read these books as well. Go to charlieforhillsdale.com, CHARLIE for Hillsdale.com. That is charlieforhillsdale.com. For years, the Democrats have had a suspicious fundraising advantage. For years, the Democrats have enjoyed a nonstop flow of money from an organization called ActBlue. Now, ActBlue operates as a fundraising powerhouse that is a pseudo-payment processor. So if you are a Democrat donor and you want to give money to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or to Gavin Newsom or to whomever, you have an ActBlue account. It remembers your payment information, very similar to Amazon.com. So when you want to donate to one of these candidates, they make it stupid easy. You could donate to Kamala Harris or to any Democrat in 2 clicks or less. 1, 2, boom, $100. You don't have to input your credit card every time. And they even make it with monthly contributions. They put it on autopilot. Now, Republicans have an equivalent Win Red, but it's just pales in comparison. However, there's something very weird happening at ActBlue. James O'Keefe has done a lot of reporting to ActBlue and found that some of the addresses didn't always correlate with donors. There's a congressional investigation into ActBlue, and more people are calling into a criminal investigation. Now, we have said many times here on this program that the cash advantage that Democrats have enjoyed via ActBlue is highly suspicious. Some people hypothesize, is this money coming from overseas? Is this money coming from Iran or China? We don't know, but we do know that ActBlue does not require the CCV numbers, the number on the back of a credit card, which is supposed to diminish fraud. Without requiring a CCV number, it is a lot easier to be able to steal credit card information, put up fake credit cards, and pump a lot of money into the American political system. Well, right now, ActBlue is falling apart. You got to wonder why. ActBlue, the Democrat fundraising powerhouse, faces internal chaos, the New York Times writes. At least 7 senior officials have left the group, setting off deep concerns about its future as it confronts scrutiny from congressional Republicans. And it won't just be congressional Republicans. If members of Congress end up sending criminal referrals to Kash Patel, I bet the FBI is going to go after them as well. More than $16 billion has passed through ActBlue in 20 years. Let me say that again. $16 billion has pumped through Democrat ActBlue in the last 20 years. We don't know where all this money is coming from. But now ActBlue is starting to close its doors, not officially, but they are collapsing from within. There are so many nuggets of this article. I could do an entire hour-long show on this. Quote, if ActBlue were to become severely diminished, Democrats running for offices at levels of all government could face setbacks significant in their efforts to raise cash. Candidates for offices ranging from school boards and city council to presidency rely on the platform for online fundraising, while Republicans have spent years trying to catch up. We have not caught up on this game. The highest-ranking legal official at ActBlue, as well as the assistant research director, the chief revenue officer and engineer who spent 16 years building and maintaining ActBlue's infrastructure, have all left. They said, quote, Zain Ahmed, who was the last remaining lawyer in the ActBlue General Counsel's office, wrote an internal Slack message on February 26 that his access to his email and other internal platforms has been cut off, and that other messages he posted in Slack have been deleted, according to screenshots obtained by the New York Times. Mr. Ahmed is now on leave from ActBlue, according to a person briefed on the group's staff. And, quote, please be advised that we have an anti-retaliation whistleblower policies for a reason, Mr. Ahmed wrote. Whoa. The congressional investigations are only going to heat up. There might be criminal investigations to follow. Is the Democrat ATM closing? Is the easy money gravy train coming to an end? If so, we could dominate the House and the Senate for a decade. Not an exaggeration. Second hour coming up.
You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Scan the QR code and start streaming RAV anywhere you want.
Real America's Voice, available whenever you need us.
It's never been easier to stay connected with the voices you trust.
RAV on iHeart means you can take us with you wherever you go.
This is huge. The truth on iHeart.
ready whenever you are. From Charlie Kirk to Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec to Grant Stinchfield, you'll find all your favorite Rav hosts in one place.
You can listen on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or Amazon. Rav is now available everywhere you get your podcasts. All you need to do is scan the QR code right now.
Download the iHeart app today and get ready for real America's voice.
Scan the QR code and join the Rav movement.
Bates here with your Real America's Voice news break. Thanks so much for being here with us. Happening today, President Trump meeting with cryptocurrency executives at the White House. The summit comes just one day after 47's latest executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That reserve will consist of Bitcoin that's owned by the federal government. The White House crypto czar says the Bitcoin will come from forfeitures assumed as part of criminal and civil cases. While it's still somewhat unclear how this federally held Bitcoin will benefit you, the taxpayer, crypto czar David Sachs says, and I'm quoting here, the U.S. will not sell any Bitcoin deposited into the reserve. It will be kept as a store of value. The reserve is like a digital Fort Knox for the cryptocurrency that's often called digital gold. Under this latest EO, the Treasury and Commerce secretaries are being directed to develop what the president calls budget-neutral strategies to acquire additional Bitcoin that have no, quote, incremental costs to taxpayers. President Trump is doing an about-face on tariffs against Mexico and Canada, at least temporarily, just 2 days after slapping the two countries with 25% taxes on imports. The commander-in-chief now pushing pause on those tariffs. He's specifically pulling back on goods that are covered by the North American Trade Agreement. The change of heart will affect 50% of Mexican imports and 39% of Canadian goods. Mr. Trump's tariff reprieve will last until April 2nd, which is the same day the commander-in-chief is expected to impose reciprocal tariffs on all of America's trade partners. Thursday's easing of tariffs came after President Trump had a conversation with Mexico's president. Taking to True Social, 47 writing, "We are working hard together on the border, both in terms of stopping illegal aliens from entering the United States and likewise stopping fentanyl. These two issues are the reason Mr. Trump has given for the imposition of tariffs in the first place." While Bitcoin represents imaginary currency that's held in the cyber world, the Trump administration, though, today preparing to pay out real money that's held in the here and now. The administration has a 6 p.m. deadline on Monday to pay foreign aid contractors and grant recipients. It's all part of a judge's ruling on Thursday on the heels of the Supreme Court's decision forcing foreign aid payments despite the Department of Government Efficiency's findings on waste when it comes to those payments. The total amount of the upcoming payments is reportedly nearly $2 million. While Elon Musk is focusing his efforts, on Doge in Washington, D.C., his SpaceX business is exploding, literally. Pieces of the company's Starship rocket are still being plucked out of the water between Florida and the Bahamas. The rocket exploded shortly after takeoff on Thursday during its 8th test mission. It was supposed to be for a satellite deployment demonstration, but Thursday's disintegration marks the second consecutive Starship failure this year. It's the latest setback for SpaceX's Whirlwind Starship development program, as Musk has set a goal of developing a rocket capable of sending bigger batches of satellites into space by the end of this year. Well, it's been big news. The U.S. House has voted to censure Texas Democrat Al Green for his outburst during President Trump's address to a joint session of Congress. He was defiant during Tuesday's speech, also defiant during his censure reading. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates. be honest, we're not getting any younger. And if you want to look and feel your best, well, you really need to check out purehealthresearch.com. They have 45 premium health supplements designed to help with every health goal that you have. Whether it's boosting your energy, trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients backed with clinical research and manufactured right here in the United States. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. All you have to do is go to purehealthresearch.com and use the coupon code KIRK at the checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there is zero risk in trying something new. So why wait? Head on over to purehealthresearch.com right now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends. Just use the coupon code KIRK, K-I-R-K. Don't miss this chance.
Okay, everybody, it is the last hour of the week, and as it is customary, we do our members call. It's members.charliekirk.com. I have Mr. Blake with me to co-pilot if necessary. It has been a long week, but a good week.
A very exciting week. This was a blast.
Andrew and Blake both deserve great credit for prepping me for the Gavin Newsom discussion. Not an easy challenge. For many reasons.
Yeah, it was a very fun, it was different. Okay, we're going against a major left-wing politician, and he's going in with his own agenda. He's not doing this on a lark.
But also in a very friendly...
But it was friendly, yeah. We were thinking, we can't just go in and say, Gavin, you're terrible, you're evil, and, blow it up, because he invited us on.
That kind of looks cringe.
That's impolite. That's not chivalrous. That's bad. But at the same time, we do know he has his own agenda with this. He very likely wants to run for president. He very likely realizes he needs to pivot towards the center. So even though we want to push our views, we don't want to just be laundering oh, Gavin, you're a great moderate now. And I think we navigated that very well.
Yes, and made a lot of headlines, made a lot of news. So thank you for the prep. And by the way, we're going to be posting a podcast episode of my reaction to the of it in its entirety. So make sure you guys subscribe to our podcast. The whole hour, this hour, guess who my guest is? Members, you guys. If you are a member, members.charliekirk.com, you can join this program all hour, members.charliekirk.com. So let's get to the first one here. Anthony, thank you for being a member. What is on your mind?
Hey, Charlie, I got a question. So I get this asked a lot. How do you guys select your campus tours? Because from what I can tell, it's mostly the South, West Coast, and a little bit in the North.
Great question. It's not nearly as dynamic as you might think of an answer. First and foremost, is it close to Arizona? Because I like to be around my family. Number two, the criteria going to private schools is like impossible. We just did a certain private school. I'm not even allowed to say the name of the private school on air because they made us sign some agreement that you can guess what private school I was at. Literally, there's like defamation clauses. It's just insane.
There's a lot of loops and things you got to jump through.
It's so terrible, right? This is why these schools should need to be totally defunded. And so, but public schools are, it was not UCLA. So I'll let you guess which one it was. It wasn't UCLA. Guess which other one it was. Anyway, don't even say it on air, Blake, because it's like there's all this.
We can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, but I think all the literally had to take down tweets and stuff. Like,
there may be videos of it, but those could be deep fakes.
Yes, exactly. So, but the essence is this though. Public schools, you're allowed to film, you're allowed to talk to students. Private schools, there's like no filming allowed, tons of restrictions because they're like, we have to protect our brand. Like they're super, it's outrageous. And so, but secondly, look, the Northeast is not always friendly to us, but sometimes there's a less sexy answer, Anthony. In the winter, I'm not going to go to Boston until the weather gets better because I can't do an outdoor event in Boston right now. So the South,
come on, it's fun. It's nice this time of year.
4 degrees, 5 degrees, right? And so the other part of this, though, that's important is we try to hit, at least in the election, we were hitting states that had some sort of involvement in the election. So all the schools in Nevada, all the schools in Arizona, all the schools in Georgia, and we're trying to pepper around. So as the weather gets better, I'm doing Midwest schools. We haven't announced all of our tour stops, and I do have a special stop coming in the Northeast soon, a very, very good one in the Northeast. So thank you, Anthony, for being a member. Deeply appreciate it. Good to hear your voice.
Thanks, Charlie.
Scott is next. Scott, thank you for being a member. Members.charliekirk.com. Scott, what's on your mind?
Hey, Charlie.
How are you?
I want to talk about the fact, I mean, this is a real personal issue for me. It affects our children. But the federal bureaucracy here in Boise, the Social Security office, we call them and they don't even answer the phone. And then when you try to go there in person, they say, hey, you got to make an appointment by phone. So to me, it's clear President Trump, and people don't talk about this enough, he is a revolutionary president, not incrementalist, but revolutionary. He wants to make these big cuts in government, but I'm really concerned that establishment DC is going to slow down and kill his efforts. So what percentage of the federal workforce do you think Trump, Doge, and the cabinet will be able to cut in the next 12 months?
So I don't know. I want to make sure I manage and taper your expectations because removing federal workers is very hard. But what they should be able to cut based on the government running, 60 to 70%. And now, as Blake astutely points out, if we want to really go after the deficit, though, eventually you have to go after entitlements. Is that right?
Or you have to go after spending at least, like
not just headcount.
The thing about headcount is the federal government's budget is like $7 trillion at this point or something, and the actual amount spent on just payroll for federal employees is, I think, maybe $250–300 billion, if that.
And there is a pension component too.
Exactly. But most of the federal government spending is take in money or print money and then route it to something.
Now, contracts are also a big part of the budget.
Contractors are a big part.
That's big.
A lot of spending on contracts, but it's also spending on military equipment. That is money that's going to who made it.
Yeah, purchasing.
And then, of course, grants. So Department of Education, for example. Department of Education doesn't have many employees, but it has a pretty big budget because it administers the student loan program, which is money going to people who are borrowing. It's really money going to colleges. They handle Title I grants. So that's just tax money goes to a public school. And that is where most spending is. And that's really where a lot of savings could be. Even just if you're looking for fraud, for waste, you can find that out there. I think one of the greatest things I was thinking of the AI, Doge could do, would be
grok it up.
Use Grok to find, for example, obviously those PPP loans that happened during COVID. Huge amounts of fraud. And you can almost make an example out of just find 10 really glaring examples and, perp walk them. That would be good moral support for the American people.
Well, and let's dive more into this. It's a great question, by the way. And I'm sorry about your experience in Boise with the Social Security Administration. Hopefully that gets cleaned up. And by the way, modernizing government is just something that needs to happen. It's so antiquated. It's so slow. It's so non-responsive. But Blake, let's dive into this more. Post-COVID, a new baseline has basically been set in where there's this expectation of the size, scope, and power the government that did not exist pre-COVID. It's almost doubled in size in 5 years.
Especially size. Like this came up, we were talking about the other day where they're trying to make a scandal out of the VA's budget. And there's talk, okay, Trump might make cuts to the VA. Well, it would be cuts to the number of people who worked at the VA in 2019. You know, it's...
Which was when Trump was president.
Trump was president, and he'd also already done big improvements to the VA at that time. Like, it was working pretty well. And since then, we have a lower number of veterans. The number of veterans is declining.
So what we're trying to just get back to 2019 baseline creates massive uproar. So baseline budgeting is one of the original sins of Washington, D.C., which every year you have to go back to the prior year baseline. You can't actually start at what's called zero-based budgeting and say, okay, every year, what do we need and why do we need it? We talk about the previous baseline. My fear, though, is that the Senate and the House are not going to cut nearly as much as they should.
I mean, it's painful to cut. The thing about cuts is someone has to be a loser when you reduce spending, and so Washington, like, it fears any sort of pain
because power is their life force.
Power is their life force, and it's just, you know, you're always the bad guy if you're the one who has to come in and say, you know, the endless money train is going away, and you know, I don't blame them for being wary to the extent that, you know, they want to get reelected. But at the same time, well, a huge amount of public trust has been invested. But
it's also the well-being of the nation.
The well-being of the nation. And it's offensive that you have to wonder, are they just going to keep spending until finally the hot potato explodes and then that person takes all the blame? And it seems a lot of Washington has made that calculation.
You could say that we are on the verge of a fiscal collapse.
All I will say is I have never heard of a country that just borrowed forever and got away with it. Eventually, a debt comes due.
You know your history pretty well. Rough greens, everybody. Yes, really quick. Sorry. Yes, sir. Really quick.
Hey, just real quick. Sorry. Is there any way that I could quickly bring up another subject, maybe after the break? Just
yeah, sure. We'll keep you through. Yes, sir. We'll do that really quick.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Rough greens. Ever see your dog slowing down or having health issues and wonder what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add rough greens to your dog's food for 90 days and you'll see changes that will amaze you, guaranteed. Invented by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, Rough Greens wants to invite you to give your puppy the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, and improved joint function. Go to roughgreens.com and use promo code Kirk. That is ruffgreens.com, promo code Kirk. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens. Invented by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, Rough Greens wants to invite you to take the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. So go to ruffgreens.com, promo code Kirk, and fetch a Jumpstart trial bag for your dog today. That is roughgreens.com, promo code Kirk, ruffgreens.com, promo code Kirk. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens today, roughgreens.com, promo code Kirk. Email me directly, freedom@charliekirk.com, and become a member, members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com, members.charliekirk.com. We're actually going to go through this break so we can pick up the second question right through. Become a member to ask us a question. Be right back. Okay, your second question.
Hey, Charlie. So really it's a question that affects everybody here, but I want you to understand where it comes from. You know, these Wuhan virus lockdowns had a lifelong negative impact on the life of our son. That's why we're reaching out to Social Security for disability. And I want to do my part to expose these government lies. Like, you know, Meghan McCain says, I want revenge. And one of the biggest lies in the government's claim about us is they can control U.S. airspace and protect us from drones, like at Autzen Stadium. And I can say for a fact that counter-drone systems can't protect Americans at stadiums, airports, and downtown areas, like the U.S. Capitol and the White House. Now, this is the point, and you guys, this is really foolish, but you're a father too. So I'm willing to bet my life savings, okay, to get attention to this, $100,000. By the way, I have all the respect in the world for Mark Andreessen, but he invested in the best counter-drone company called Anduril. And I'm willing to bet that he can't stop me and my friends from crashing a drone in the stands at Autzen Stadium during a test when the stadium is empty, right? And don't you want to know if you and your family and friends are protected at Autzen? I mean, they can't protect the White House. They can't protect, DCA. I mean, this is something that people need to know about. I'm serious.
No, I got it. I agree. And no, Blake, they don't know about that. We had a drone encounter in our family recently. We're not talking about that yet. Drones are a serious problem. We had a very near miss of a drone with our family this week in a really serious way. I don't want to get too much into detail there.
Yes.
But anyway, the development and the proliferation of drones is very scary. I don't think the U.S. government is nearly adequately prepared. And I would imagine your contention is correct. Blake, what your thoughts on?
It's really scary because when you think, like, for example, the Ukraine war, a big reason actually that, Ukraine hasn't collapsed actually is they could just get insanely cheap like drones on each end, and it makes it like so hard to advance because you can just fly like a suicide drone bomb into something. And you kind of wonder, we spend $1 trillion on our military. We have a ton of tanks, a ton of ships, a ton of planes, and it could be that the future of warfare is, you can make, a drone about yay big for $1,000 and it can carry a bomb wherever you want and just explode. And
it is changing warfare as we know it.
Changing warfare changes security because, imagine like the Secret Service, and now instead of having to look for a sniper, any robot could just, put a rifle on it and it can fly anywhere. It's insane.
It's a great point. And also, you better know what you're doing when you're flying a drone. When they fall out of the sky, they could kill somebody. Stay right there.
Charlie Kirk is a terrific person. He's mainstream, conservative, but solid as a rock.
Charlie Kirk Show.
We are going to keep on taking your questions here. But first, why refi? Whyrefi.com. That is YREFY.com. That is whyrefi.com. Private student loan debt in the U.S. totals about $300 billion. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed. Why Refi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others will not touch. Why Refi does not care what your credit score is. When the payment on your distressed or defaulted private student loan is so big, you guys should check it out. It may not be available in all states. Go to whyrefi.com, call 888-WhyRefi34, or log on to whyrefi.com. Why Refi offers a 3-minute rate check without any credit impact. That is YREFY.com. Do you have a co-borrower? Why Refi can get them released from the loan. You can give mom or dad a needed and earned break. Go to whyrefi.com. Because of private student loan debt, so many Americans feel stuck and helpless. So go to whyrefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Can you imagine being debt-free and not living under this burden anymore? Go to whyrefi.com, YREFY.com. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. That is freedom@charliekirk.com. Love hearing from you. Subscribe to our podcast to listen to the entirety of my reaction to the whole Gavin Newsom conversation. Be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. The previous guest member made a very astute point that I don't want to fearmonger, but what is preventing a couple terrorists equipping drones going to open-air sports stadiums? I don't think law enforcement is ready for that.
The biggest limiter on terrorism of all sorts has always just been not that many people want to do it, but especially if you can do it with machines, like it becomes easy. Like at least in the past, doing something really bad was kind of a suicide thing, but now it doesn't even have to be that. You can build a machine that does it.
Okay, Shane. Shane is here. Thank you for being a member. What is on your mind?
Hey, Charlie. Real quick, I saw the poster behind you regarding Wisconsin.
Yes,
and
sir.
Since I live in Wisconsin, I wanted to know what that meant, the travel to Wisconsin and chase 100 ballots.
Yes. Are you familiar with the upcoming Supreme Court race?
I am not, actually.
Okay, not your fault, but that is really illuminating. Again, you're busy, a lot of stuff going on, but this is why it's so important. Why we're doing what we're doing. This is the most important election of 2025. In fact, I think there's a Wall Street Journal op-ed that says that today. So, and by the way, God bless you. What's your name again?
Shane.
Shane, this is why I'm coming to Wisconsin a week from Monday. This is the most important election happening in the country. It's for this year. It is for a Supreme Court seat that will determine the future of the entire Wisconsin Supreme Court. You say, oh, so what? That involves your congressional maps, your voter integrity measures, everything associated alongside of it. So what we are doing is we're helping chase ballots, similar to what we kind of did back in November, to try and raise and drive awareness about this off-election, low-turnout election. Blake, while I try to find this op-ed, can you talk about how it is a strictly turnout election?
Yeah.
This is not a persuasion election.
Exactly. So when you look at any election, there's a certain amount of people who turn out for it. And so I bet we can even look up here where it's like Wisconsin in the 2024 presidential race is going to be, let's see how many people voted in it.
About 3 million.
Yeah, so about 3 million people.
Right?
Yeah, you're almost 3.3 million, it looks like.
Off the top of my head.
3.3 million people voted in 2024. Now let's check. We had a 2023 Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, right?
I bet, let me just guess, I bet 1 million people vote in it.
Well, let's go check. I think it's a bit higher than that, but we'll check here. About 1.8 million.
Oh, well, that's
so
more than I
literally
thought.
about barely half as, maybe like 60% as many votes as in the presidential race, and we lost that one, I believe. And
yeah, we got crushed.
Yeah, we lost by 10 points. But if you had the number of people who voted in the 2024 presidential election come and turn out in that race, or even the number of people who voted in 2020 when we finished in second ultimately, like, if you had that many people turn out, you would win by a mile. It's not even, you would eke out a win. You would crush them. It is entirely a matter of turnout. It is who gets their people to care about this race that is not in a normal election cycle.
And so if you want to get involved, Shane, it's tpaction.com/100, part of our Commit 100 program. We got a million stuff going on. We don't feel as if there's enough national attention right now on this Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. That's why I'm going there next Monday. We're bringing Donald Trump Jr. alongside. We're doing the whole program. This could swing the House of Representatives, and Wisconsin is critical. It is necessary for the future of our country to keep Wisconsin in contention if we lose. So, Shane, yes.
I just want to drive home how much turnout matters. If you had John McCain lost Wisconsin by 14 points in 2008, and if you had his number of votes in that Supreme Court race, you would win by like 20 points. That's how much turnout matters.
Probably smaller.
Yeah, smaller population, way smaller turnout. It is entirely a turnout race.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it. Next member. Oh, sorry.
Actually,
Shane, go ahead.
I didn't even get to the actual question.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know you were going to go off on such a tangent on this. I'm sorry. I apologize for it being so important. My actual question was regarding the prison systems and spending. Like prisoners, they get treated like hotel guests.
Correct.
I mean, they get all of these freedoms, they get privileges, they get PlayStations, they get TVs, they get, snacks and stuff. And, meanwhile, the taxpayers are paying for all of this, or the families of the inmates are paying for all of this. I did a little bit of research, and there's a organization called Prison Policy Initiative. They estimate that in 2023 there was $182 billion spent on prisons. And I just wondered if this is something you think DOJ would be a good target for.
Blake, really quick.
Most prisons are state funded, like the vast majority of prisoners.
There is a federal bureau.
There's federal stuff, but it's mostly state. You'd want to look at what your state does. I don't know the biggest drivers of cost increase. It's just everything costs more money than it used to.
I do think you make an astute point. We'll talk about after the break, where Sam Bankman-Fried, who's a total fraud and a terrible person, joined the great Tucker Carlson's podcast. He was talking about all the amenities he was getting. Are you actually in jail, or are you on a vacation playing Xbox? We're going to go through the breaks. Members.charliekirk.com. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, members.charliekirk.com. Maggie, thank you for being a member.
Hey,
What's on your mind? How are you? Thanks for supporting us.
Good. I actually was just going to watch today, but your breaking news at the end of hour one immediately brought a question to mind. Do you think the recent activity at ActBlue is related to USAID funding being cut off to many entities?
Ooh.
I know you are a big fan of Breaking Bad, so am I. And I always thought Democrats' big numbers in fundraising was suspicious because there's a party of entitlements. And other than their big money donors, I couldn't see them getting that many people to make small donations. Well, you remember what they did in Breaking Bad, the money laundering to make it look like random donations were sent in to pay for Walter White's cancer treatment. As soon as you said that story, I thought, oh my gosh, that could possibly be ActBlue knows what's coming because their funding's been cut off.
It very well could be. I think you are bringing up a very good point. With the answers we don't know, you could be right. That as USAID funding has been put in suspension, there has been a suspicious amount of like closures and nonprofits that are second guessing. The money is coming from somewhere. The ActBlue, the more sinister accusation against ActBlue is that it's Chinese or Iranian originated. We don't have great evidence of that. There are some on the Hill that say that they've seen intelligence that might suggest that. But there also just could be just good old-fashioned criminal activity.
It could be as old-fashioned as just they route so much money through it.
Yes.
Who's to say someone didn't go, okay, I'm going to make it so 0.1% ends up going into this side thing and no one will notice it and it's part of our fees. There's a lot of mundane criminal activity that could happen. It could also be more organized criminal activity. It could also be we suspect this is criminal activity and we deliberately keep our system feeble and not able to detect it because then we have, plausible deniability. Like, look the other way, don't think too hard about it. There's so many different levels to it. I do want to push back a little that, frankly, if you've been around liberals enough, I actually talked to a friend of mine at the Daily Caller where they investigated one of those people who had like tons and tons of donations in their name. And they reached him like, do you really donate that many times? And the person said, yep, I do. I watch the news all day. I get so worked up and I send him another $20.
Of course, some of it is legitimate. I mean,
so I don't want to say like, oh, it's all fraud. There's a lot of passionate Democrats out there. They care a lot about politics. So much of what you've done is we need to train conservatives to care as much as the enemy does.
And I will say that
lots of room for fraud.
The tech of ActBlue is very, very good. Meaning it's like Amazon.com for giving money. It saves all your payment information. It feels like it's really the user interface is very friendly. It's not just like, this old loading thing. It's hard to describe. If you actually go through the pages of ActBlue, it's very well constituted. It is one-stop shopping.
It really reflects how, in the Obama era, 2008, that they had just a total lockdown on Silicon Valley.
That's right.
And they got all the smart 28-year-old tech guys come in. Let's make them the slickest website, the slickest app. And we're finally starting to catch up in that world. And
it was so profound that basically every Democrat donor has their payment information saved. So anytime a guy goes on MSNBC, these Democrat donors are able to say, okay, I want to go give $10 to, I don't know, Beto O'Rourke or, whatever. Easy, done. Elizabeth Warren. It's all saved. It's easy to use. They make it seamless. But I definitely think that there's a lot of suspicion there. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Curtis, what is on your mind? Thanks for being a member.
Well, yes, thank you, Charlie. It's really a great honor to be able to speak with you. And I wanted to briefly say I really appreciated your previous interview with Secretary of Ag, Burke Rawlings. I'm a lifelong Eastern Oregon rancher, beef producer, family operation. And it's so great to have this new administration coming in and wanting to hear from the grassroots producers. And that's what I wanted to emphasize and let you and whomever else may be able to get our group. We have a group out here that is in the high desert that oftentimes gets ignored, but there's very many natural resource issues that we need to get through to the administration, both in the Interior Department and with the Secretary of Ag. And one of the biggest problems that we have as beef producers is the meat packing cartel that rules the protein production, not only in the nation, but
hold that thought super quick. We're coming back from a break. In 15 seconds, I'll throw it back to you. Hang on 1 second. Okay, everybody, I want to tell you about the Herzog Foundation. So check it out right now, Herzog Foundation. Really great supporters of our show. For years, I've been talking about how our nation's schools have been captured by progressive ideologues. We work very closely with the Herzog Foundation at Turning Point Academy. Hutz and the entire team are doing a wonderful job. From their online publication, The Lion, to their new podcast, Making the Leap, the Herzog Foundation offers a wide range of advice and information for Christian parents to make the best decisions for your kids. To learn more about how your family, faith, and community can flourish through a quality Christian education, go to herzogfoundation.com. That is herzogfoundation.com. Check it out right now. They are the trusted source on American K-12 Christian education. Portions of the Charlie Kirk Show are brought to you in part by the Stanley M. Herzog Foundation, Stanley M. Herzog Foundation, herzogfoundation.com. Really quick, Curtis, what is your question?
So my question is, we want to combine with the Make America Healthy Again and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s in HHS. We can combine and we just, but the main thing I guess, Mr. Kirk, that I want to get through is that the administration and the undersecretaries must get down here to the grassroots producers. They cannot listen to the national organizations that are supposedly representing agricultural interests, because they are all corporately influenced. And so my question to you is, how best can we as grassroots producers, possibly through your platform, your connections, we would love to make that connection and have field hearings out here, but more importantly, to get to the administration, Secretary Brooke Rollins, to hear the true family operations, farming operations of what would both most benefit our rural communities and food security for America. Thank you very much.
Where are you located?
I'm in Eastern Oregon.
Oh, go Ducks.
Yeah, don't count Eastern Oregon as the socialist side of Oregon, please.
Yeah, you guys should join Idaho. That's a longer term project. That's what we call a Project 2029 item.
Project 2100, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, project.
We are very envious of Idaho. I think we should create a state of Jefferson, actually, with Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon. But anyway, go ahead.
I love the state of Jefferson. I love that. And self-determination and self-government. I would be willing to lend a voice to that one day. Just please don't put Pullman there at the college campus. You carve it out. By the way, producer Andrew is from a cattle rancher family in northern Nevada, and he says you're 100% right. Happy to send this clip to Brooke directly, which is what I will do, which is one of the benefits of being a member. And I do want to compliment you. We use the term grassroots a lot. You actually are grassroots in what you are doing, not just metaphorical. You're actually the grassroots.
Right. We truly are a family operation. And my biggest passion, Charlie, is God has blessed me to be a lifelong rancher and beef producer. But if things don't change, my grandchildren will have no opportunity to provide beef and protein to the country. So that's my passion that drives me. So thank you very much.
Well, that is an admirable passion. I have someone in the Department of Agriculture that I know that is not Brooke Rollins, that is from Idaho. His name is Todd. He's a rock star that I would be comfortable connecting you with. He's terrific.
Oh, so, please do. We're looking for any connection that we can get our truthful message to. So I so appreciate it.
No, this guy's Todd. He's a rock star, and he actually owns something. He might be, I don't know. We'll connect you. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Daisy, let's make sure we follow up on that and we get him connected. See, the government that works for the people. All right, who's next? What do we got here? Stan, thank you for being a member. What's on your mind?
Charlie, nice to talk to you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I was living in Dallas, Texas. I was looking for one of your chapters online a few months ago and couldn't find one in Dallas. And I saw there was one in Rockwall with a small amount of, looks like to me, some young kids. And I can help be the voice of reason if I have the opportunity to find some chapter that they would benefit from my experience and knowledge.
Well, thank you, sir. I actually will be in Dallas tomorrow. So you should come by the event, actually. Would love to see you as a member. We can get you all accommodated. Speaking at let me see, where am I at here tomorrow? Mikey, let me see here. I want to make sure I get these details right. Hold on one second. You said you're obviously Dallas, Texas, so let me see what I got here.
Yes.
Okay, I will be in Plano at the Renaissance Dallas at the Plano Legacy West Hotel, speaking at a pro-life event tomorrow evening. So if that is your deal, we'd love to have you come by and we can get you a ticket.
I'll be there.
Great. Okay. Daisy, get them connected. And you see, that's the benefit of being a member. We always look out for our members. Daisy will reach out. And Daisy, that is her hometown. So thank you, sir. We'd love to have you. And also we can connect you with some local young patriots. And yes, it's a Nick Vujicic, Kevin Freeman, and also a Lieutenant General Mike Flynn event. Great. It's a pro-life fintech event from Dallas, Texas. Don't worry. I'm speaking once the sun sets down, once Shabbat ends. I know all of you keeping score at home. Okay, what do we have here?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have a ton of chapters in Dallas. We have a ton. Okay. Ted, thanks for being a member. What's on your mind?
Hey, Charlie, calling from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, and I have a question for you on, obviously, the border situation and the tariffs. Do you think that Trump would be open to ending the tariffs if we in Canada had an actual leader willing to talk seriously about the border issues, or is this now more about him seeking to weaken our economy, bring us along as the 51st state? Where do you stand on mitigating this?
First of all, I do not want you guys as the 51st state. Way too many libs. But you seem great. But no, as far as his strategy, I can't read his mind, and I've never heard him say this in private or public. But I actually think he would be happy with the same treatment of a free trade agreement with some of our allies. I actually think what bothers him the most is that we get tariffed and we do not have reciprocal tariffs against us. And I think that should be the goal, especially with Canada or Mexico. Now, when it comes to our adversaries like China, I think we should tariff across the board. But yes, tariffs can have a cost to them. However, certain tariffs for certain industries, we might have to joust a little bit with the Canadians. When it comes to certain, like 95% of our fertilizer comes from Canada, probably not smart to tariff that. Blake, where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I don't know entirely what his agenda is, and I think it would be helpful if he was more public with it, but I think it's not really Trump's way to just overtly tip exactly what he's going for. There's always some, the weave sort of applies to his diplomacy too. Yeah, like, what was he going for with North Korea? What's he going for with Russia? It's always a little bit beneath the surface. I think he'd probably play ball more if there was a better government than Justin Trudeau, but I've also entertained the possibility he may like Justin Trudeau as like a foe that he can spar with, and he'll maybe miss him once he's gone. I guess I don't want to jump to conclusions about what his intent is because I'm not entirely sure, so I don't want to speak for him.
I will say the only part of Canada that will willingly accept is Alberta.
You got to be careful with that. Remember, they have first past the post, so I don't.
What do you mean?
So when they hold an election, there's like 4 major parties in Canada. I guess like kind of 3 at the national level, and it's just whoever gets the most votes gets the seat in their parliament. So what I'm saying is, I'm not sure if we suddenly shifted them to just Republicans and Democrats. I kind of think Alberta would still be a blue state.
You do?
Yeah.
Really?
Okay, my gut feeling.
All right, I've changed my opinion. They can keep it. They can keep it. All right, Will, thanks for being a member. What's on your mind? Members.charliekirk.com.
Hey, Charlie. So I know with confirmations coming to kind of wrapping up, the next thing's going to be moving legislation. Of course, that's going to bring up whether we should nuke the filibuster. It seems like both parties have folks wanting to do that. I'm not to the point yet, but I do think that there might be some things that they could change in the Senate rules to hopefully get legislation passed. Like I believe now, which you got to have 3/5 of members for cloture. If they were to make it 3/5 of members present, so everybody would actually have to stay on the floor, stay in town, couldn't go out to eat with lobbyists. Is that anything like that being discussed that you're aware of?
Yes. So I will I will say I actually am in favor of keeping the filibuster for major spending bills that are non-reconciliation. Mm-hmm. I know that some people are going to disagree with that, but I think the filibuster prevented some of the most sinister stuff of Joe Biden from being passed in the first in Biden's term. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure I actually am a pro-filibuster guy in that sense. With that being said, of course we will be out of power again sometime in the future, hopefully a long way off, and the filibuster is a guarantor to slow down the process and to make sure that crazy ideas like adding D.C. and Puerto Rico as states can't just happen with a 50-person vote. Imagine if we got rid of the filibuster and we lost in the future, which is totally conceivable, because I know everyone says, oh, we're never going to be beat. No, hold on. Things go in cycles. They go back and forth. Imagine the Democrats with a Democrat president could be like, okay, D.C. is a state, Puerto Rico is a state. And we're going to be looking back like, well, we got rid of the filibuster for what exactly? But getting rid of the filibuster for a reconciliation bill, fine. That's a very specific thing. The Democrats start that precedent. We cannot predict how radical the Democrats are going to be when that time comes, not if. There will be a moment in our lifetime where we no longer control the U.S. Senate. We literally just got back control. I hope that never happens. You have to plan for that. Blake, what is your thoughts?
Yeah, so what's funny with the filibuster is, as I've mentioned to you before, the filibuster is fake. Like, the filibuster could be eliminated at any time, and it's maintained because both parties in the Senate have an interest in just not voting on things that they nominally support. So, with Mitch McConnell, it was, we can use the filibuster as an excuse to not do border stuff. With Democrats, it's, Joe Biden doesn't necessarily want to pack the Supreme Court because he thinks they'll get blown up. It's a thing that protects the majority party from votes it does not want to take. But it is still true, as you say, that if you get rid of it, it is the Pandora's box. And I think what's especially important to emphasize is whoever takes the first move on abolishing the filibuster won't get as much out of it as the second party to take office. I
also just want to say that there has been a decade-long erosion of the filibuster. It actually started with Harry Reid, if you might remember. Harry Reid, of all people, started the erosion of the filibuster for district, circuit, and district court judges. And then it marched forward when then we used the abolition of the filibuster to put Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court back in 2017, then also with Brett Kavanaugh, then also with Amy Coney Barrett. And so we've seen the slow erosion of the filibuster. I think we've eroded it enough. Look, it would be very tempting right now because we control the House and the Senate. Get rid of the filibuster, simple up or down vote. I think that would be a mistake. I think it would be a tragedy.
If you were going to do it, I would say you should do it immediately after an election to get the most out of it.
Yeah, but then the Democrats will do it to us in the future.
They will. But if you were going to do it, you'd want to get the most out of it. You don't want to do it right before an election and then you lose power and they get the full.
And by the way, it's not just a matter of doing it. I don't think the Senate would put up with it. So it's not even a realistic thing right now. Relief factor. When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money, a bigger house, maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically, how you wake up each day, how you sleep, what activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily, helps reduce or even eliminate it. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. That is the number 1-800-4RELIEF. Relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com. So check it out right now. Relieffactor.com. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. If you are a member, you can ask a question live, members.charliekirk.com. We'll be right back. So we are here during the Rav only break. Is that right? That's what this is. Okay. We could get to another question here, but yeah, let me just reflect a little bit more on this. Carol, are you still there? Is Carol still there? We said goodbye to Carol.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Carol, overall, did you think it was a good idea, very quickly, for me to speak with Governor Newsom?
Yes, I sure did. He's trying to figure out how this has all happened. They're lost. He's trying to figure it out. And so you're kind of exposing where they're at and the whole thing. And you were just so honest. I mean, you were telling him. And so he had to answer. And look what happened. So you're actually, by doing that interview, you started some conflict within the Democrats.
You're smart,
and it's
Carol.
a conversation that they need to have. And it's so weird if you just take this whole thing that's happening right now.
Stay right there.
If you were a social scientist,
I'm sorry. We had to cut off Carol. Carol, if you're listening, I apologize. We had a radio break, and I got to get to another question. But, Carol, you're a very sweet person. I'll send you a signed hat as an apology. So sorry about that. Okay, let's get to the next question here. Elizabeth, thanks for being a member. What's on your mind?
Yes. Hi, Charlie. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. Actually, I'm very upset because, long story short, my father died in a nursing home during COVID in April of 2020. And when it first happened, we assumed that, like everyone else, a nurse had gotten COVID and it spread throughout. We didn't find out until months later that Andrew Cuomo literally and deliberately put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. And I want people to understand, every single person who had a family member in a nursing home got a phone call on March 9th saying we are shutting down the nursing homes for their safety and you cannot come see your family. So they locked me out because I may or may not have COVID. And then 15 days later, they deliberately put COVID-positive patients in the nursing homes. He was told, if you do this, thousands of people will die. How is this man still politically viable and running for the mayor of New York City?
Well, largely because the Democrats almost nobody else. And the Democrat Party is not a party. It is a machine. And you plug in place pieces. And they've looked at their roster and they're like, well, why'd we get rid of this Cuomo guy again?
Cuomo is a lot like Gavin, actually, in that he's a canny political operator.
Very similar, yes.
He got pushed. They got him out on Me Too, right? Yeah. And so
they got him out on Me Too instead of the mass murder because Governor Murphy and Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania both did the exact same thing he did. And if they got Cuomo out on it, they would have had to take out the other governors on this. So did Whitmer up in Michigan. So 4 governors did this. No one's being held accountable. There was an investigation by the Department of Justice under the Trump administration. When Biden came in, unfortunately, the first thing they did was they squashed that investigation. And I don't know are they going to start that up again?
That's a good question. I don't know.
New York State was 15,300 people. It was 9,000 people in New Jersey and 8,000 people in Pennsylvania. And Rachel Levine, whatever her first real name is, she also did the same order in Pennsylvania for Governor Wolf. She pulled her mother out of the nursing home the day before that order was going to take place.
We don't have a ton of time. I want to say you're not alone. And you know who else is like a dog with a bone on this? Janice Dean. Janice Dean is the Fox News weather woman, and both of her parents died because of Cuomo's mismanagement of the nursing homes. I would love to see that criminal investigation relaunched. I'm very sorry for your loss. God bless you. We got to move to the next question. Thank you, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, I want to read this last one. Okay. Hey, Charlie, I can't unmute for some reason. With the transparency of this administration, where are the JFK and MLK Jr. files? And will we hear anything about the 2017 Vegas shooting? I never asked you, what is your thought on the Vegas shooting?
I am mostly not on board with the Vegas theories.
Just the questions?
I think people have a bias to demand like big causes for things. And so I remember
it is bizarre.
When I was with Tucker,
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, when I was with Tucker, we had a guy who he was saying, I think he was on the National Security Council, and he was trying to say like we have evidence that it was a joint ISIS Antifa operation. And to be honest, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, this person is crazy. And I think the boring answer is like some guy had like ennui because he's this like fading boomer who was like a professional gambler, and like he decided to go out in this spectacular way, and it had to be more than that. They had to find a better motive than this guy. It was just like a horrible psycho who decided to kill a ton of people, and it does go against our usual things. It was an older guy than most shooters. Usually they're young, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that just a lunatic would decide to gun down a lot of people. And I think what stands out is if someone else did it, it's just why? Like,
no, I'm not even. I'm not shocked at your opinion, and it's persuasive. There's a lot of witness testimony to support official narrative. Thank you for all you do. I think, though, at least we can agree. Release all the files.
Yeah, release every file we have, of course.
I am privately and publicly. My advice to the administration is, I'm very consistent, guys. You guys got to start putting these files out. We need Epstein. We need JFK. We need MLK. We need Malcolm X. Vegas shooting. Just to a website, put them all up. No redaction.
Any document from a year that
put
starts.
Them up. Go.
Any document from a year that starts with 1-9 should just be public.
All of it. Just like no more hiding. Like, let's just get them up. That's my own personal opinion. I know they're working on that, but I think the American people voted for it, and that's what they deserve. And that's also what the president has demanded, by the way. Blake, thank you. Everybody, what a great week that was. We are going to be posting the entirety of my reaction to Gavin Newsom's speech, with it, the entire conversation there. Shabbat shalom. God bless you guys, and I'll see you on Monday.
You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is